I gotta stop doing this. Hilda is a show that had been under my radar for quite some time. Created by Luke Pearson and based off of his series of graphic novels, Hilda chronicles the whimsical adventures of its title character, as she and her mother live in isolation in a cabin outside the town of Trollberg. This show is deeply rooted in the fantasy genre, with Hilda encountering mystical creatures and has a pet deer fox named Twig. Eventually, events transpire that cause them to move to the town of Trollberg, and Hilda gains new companions and acquaintances along the way. As I said, the Netflix exclusive series had been under my radar during its first season, meaning that I didn't hear about it for quite some time. It was only when I saw a video by the YouTubers MJ Tanner twins that it caught my eye. With the two saying how charming and fun it was, I made sure to keep it under consideration. A couple years and a pandemic later, I decided to give the show a shot. Coming off of surviving divorce during the summer, I wanted to watch something fun and not very stressful, and Hilda seemed like the perfect winter show to sit down and have a cup of green tea with. Needless to say, I certainly got just that, and so much more. I know the title of this video says I underestimated the show, when obviously I sat down to watch it with relatively pleasant expectations, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that the title is a misnomer of some kind. Well, to tell you the truth, I did kind of underestimate the show. Not because I thought the show was going to be bad, but I underestimated just how lovely the show is. And I'm happy to report that word is, because the show is, for the time being, ongoing. There's a 70-minute film coming out sometime this year, continuing off from the ending of Season 2, which I will not spoil for reasons. No word on if this will also be the starting point for Season 3, but at least there's still Hilda content being worked on. Unlike glitch techs. Though marketed towards children, Hilda is surprisingly a more mature show than it lets on. No, that doesn't mean that there's blood, cursing, and copious amounts of fan service. After all, who needs fan service when you got these lovely ladies that show up often? Hey, is there a Mr. Joanna I don't know about? I mean, sorry, moving on. No, I'm talking that the show treats its audience with respect, and never talks down to them like they're children, presenting various topics with a great level of maturity while still maintaining a sense of wonder and optimism. Season 2 goes down some darker, sometimes violent territory, though the violence in the episodes where it arises is played somewhat for comedic effect. If I were to describe the tone of the show, or if I were to describe the feeling of it, it's that Hilda feels like a combination of Wes Anderson meets Spike Jonze. I don't mean the Royal Tenenbaums Wes Anderson or Being John Malkovich Spike Jonze, but the Fantastic Mr. Fox, Isle of Dogs Wes Anderson, and Where the Wild Things Are Spike Jonze. Those movies are fun and fantastical, but has an element of emotion that sneaks up on you when you're not ready for it. That, to me, is what Hilda is. It's a show that sneaks up on you with its quality, with episodes that'll make you laugh, others that'll make you cry, or at the very least get misty-eyed. Either that or I'm just an easily emotional person, the jury's still out on that one. Hilda herself is a great protagonist, and mostly carries the show on her shoulders. After all, the show is named after her, and if she were to be an unlikable or unendearing character, it would have less than the other strengths. She's witty, smart, capable, and optimistic, showing empathy for other creatures and wanting to understand them. However, the show isn't afraid of giving her moments of brattiness and disobedience. This makes sense due to Hilda being a child, and those moments serve as a reminder that she sometimes isn't perfect. From what I am to understand, the graphic novels that the show is based on present these moments in greater numbers, and was toned down by the creator himself in order to make her more endearing to the audience. While I haven't read the graphic novels, I am inclined to believe that this was a good decision, mostly because I didn't want to see Hilda yell at my wife, Joanna. Speaking of Joanna, it's not often you see a parental figure in a fantasy show who is aware of what their child is doing. Normally they're in the background thinking their child is upstairs studying or being normal, but Joanna is sometimes an active participant in Hilda's adventures. Most of the time by complete accident, but she is for the most part supportive of her daughter's habits. She worries like most mothers would, and has moments where she voices her concerns and even puts her foot down, which leads to some hard to watch but necessary conflict. In fact, Joanna is one of the most well-realized parental figures I've ever seen in a children's show. She's someone who wants the best for Hilda, and enjoys watching her go out and see the world, but she's also in tremendous struggle, not knowing if she's doing the right thing, or if she's a good mother. It isn't known what happened to Hilda's father, whether he passed away, or simply left the family on less than amicable terms. If it's the latter, I wouldn't hesitate to throw hands with him for leaving such a beautiful and loving angel behind for whatever reasons he might have. Have mercy!
God has mercy. I don't.
The other characters are also great. Hilda's friends, Frida and David, have a good rapport with Hilda, and they too also have a good amount of dimension, as the trio aren't completely on board with one another at times, which leads to some fine conflict. One specific conflict lasts for more than a couple episodes, which some fans have found somewhat frustrating, and I understood that, but since I was enjoying the episodes in between the rift and the resolution, I wasn't too bothered. There's also the elf character Alfor. He's small and often shown as a small little creature on Hilda's shoulder. He provides most of the comic relief, which I was initially afraid that he would be an annoying sidekick, but while he's not as endearing as some of the other cast members, he's an often hilarious inclusion to the cast, and I'm happy whenever there are arcs involving his character. One particular side character that I would be remiss not to mention is the librarian Kaisa, who has a minor role in Season 1 and takes a more prominent role in Season 2 as she becomes more essential to Hilda's adventures. She is apparently a new character created for the show, and honestly, if I ever sat down and read the source material, Kaisa would be sorely missed because she is a well-developed and likable presence. Plus, she's got a very appealing voice. Did I mention that pretty much every character has an accent, and it's great?
Look at this new game I got. Let's play around before we eat.
These books are not for circulation. Reference only.
Full disclosure, I have never interrogated spirits before, so...
It might be better if I showed you around a bit more first.
Craigie Williams, Cinca Glow Cemetery, plot 572.
What if they escaped?
At this point, I really don't know what else to say, as I don't want to go too deep into spoilers. I do want you all to watch this show if you have a Netflix account. I wish there was a Blu-ray release at some point so that more people can watch it. I could go into how beautiful the animation is, how quick the pacing of the show is, the emotional resonance of some of the episodes, and that it does tackle themes of loneliness, environmentalism, and darker themes of death and separation with aplomb. And like I said before, it just sometimes sneaks up on you with how emotional it's going to be. An episode involving Hilda's Deer Fox Twig had the waterworks go up to 11. It's just that effective. But as before, I don't want to go too deep into spoiler territory. I am beyond excited to see that the show is still continuing, even if it's just for a movie. If it ends there, I would be sad, but I do have faith that there is more to come, and that the upcoming film will be just as masterful as the show. Honestly, if there is a word I can use to describe the show Hilda, it would be masterful. Actually, do you know what show I think is even better?